Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories for the Love of Books. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm excited to be here. My name is Shara Goswick, and I'm your host. Today on the podcast, for the Love of Books, I talked to author David K. Wilson. He's written multiple mystery books. He just wrote a psychological thriller, and he's written a comedy book as well. David was so kind recently to talk to our book club because we read his book and he answered lots of questions then. But I loved his book so much that I wanted to talk to him here on the podcast. So, our word of the week
It's the word of the week.
is start. I asked David what advice he would give someone who wanted to start writing, who had these big ideas for books or whatever it is they wanted to do. What would you tell them? And he said the first thing I would tell them is just do it, just start. So, what is it that you need to start today? What project? What dream? What is it that you've had in the back of your mind? You've kind of toyed with a little bit, but you haven't really taken that step. Start. Whatever it is, just start. I promise you will regret not starting so much more than starting and failing. Just start. That's all you have to do. Take that step, make that phone call, research, do whatever it is, but just start today. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. I hope you'll check out his books after you hear us talking about them because they really are great. I've said I wouldn't recommend a book that I haven't read myself. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for talking to me today.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, you are my first author to have on my new For the Love of Books segment. I'm so excited. I've talked to a lot of authors, and most of them are helping people, they're kind of self help books or different
Mhm.
things. I read a lot of fiction, and I've only spoken to one author last year who had nothing to do with anything that I was talking about on my podcast, but I was so excited to talk to him because he said yes. And so I thought I really want to do this more. And so you're the first one. I'm so excited
Wow, me too. Thanks. I'm honored.
because we read your I think this is number 7, correct, in the series. We read this in book club. I went back to get number 1 to start from the beginning, and they
Uh-huh.
didn't have number 1, so I got number 3.
Oh, well, wait, what's number three? That's
Number 3 is Dark
Dark
Harbor.
Harbor. That's a good one.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it
Yeah,
is.
that's
Abby said, I said, do you think I could start at number 3? And she said, well, if you read number 7 and weren't confused, I guess it's probably fine. And I said, that's a good point. So I got number 3.
Okay, oh good.
You have written so far all mysteries or that kind of genre, right?
Except for two.
Okay, there's 2.
Yeah, there's two that are, well, I guess they're kind of, like one is a crime comedy, I'll call it.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like a Carl Hyacin story, just a weaving to that's and that's it's the comedy part of it is it involves a lot of family stories
Oh,
that are in it. So and then the other one is one that I just published, which is a psychological thriller, and it's kind of a ghost
yes.
story, psychological thriller. So, but other than that, they're all the
Kind
same
of
old
all
mystery.
mystery. Is
Mhm.
that something that you always wanted to do? Like, did you always want to be a writer?
I've always wanted to be a writer in one form or another.
Yeah.
And I started out more writing screenplays
Oh,
and
okay.
did all that for many years. And I had an agent and had a few movies produced
Oh, cool.
and that was going, it's one of those things that it's slow going. You
Hmm.
write it fast and then they sit and then you try to sell it and then they have to get funding and then they have to and everything. And then when it's done, everyone's, the thing I liked about it is it's so collaborative that
Right.
what comes out at the end is different than what I did.
Yeah.
Sometimes for the better, sometimes not. But it's nice to kind of release it into the wild and let it become something. So I did that, and while I was doing that, I started ghostwriting for someone,
Hmm.
and then started writing novels after that. And
Does it bother you when well, any kind of writing, the ghostwriting or the screenplays or anything, when people change stuff that you've written? Does it bother you?
well, so I've worked in advertising for decades, and which is pretty much writing something and have everyone and their mother
Everyone
change.
change it.
Everyone changes it. You'll get the client will say, my child saw this and didn't like it. And so my skin
Right.
is so thick.
I guess you have to be.
Yeah.
I guess you kind of
Although
have to.
with advertising, I can remove myself from it because it's
Yeah.
not. So, um,
Right.
but typically, I mean, it depends because with books, I'll have people read it and give me feedback, and for the most part, it's really good feedback.
Yeah.
And incorporate a lot of it. And if I don't like it, I get to say, "Oh no, I won't do it."
So what do you remember the first thing you ever wrote?
Um, I was gonna try to find these because they're in a scrapbook somewhere, and either I have them or my mother has them. But
Mhm.
I was writing stories when I was a little kid, like
Yeah.
5, 6 years old. And
Wow.
one that I was staying at my grandmother's house, and she had an old typewriter,
Mm.
typed out this story about Tom the dog who ran away from home, got lost in the woods. And I took it and I left spaces and then drew pictures in it,
Yeah.
stapled it together. My grandmother helped make this little book. And I think
Oh,
that's my very first book. And
that's awesome. Was the Sam Lawson Mysteries, was that your first kind of big set of writing? Did you automatically decide to do self-publishing, or did you kind of check
I
out traditional publishing? And
I
you
checked
did.
out traditional publishing, and what I was finding, I was reading a lot of different people saying it's a different market now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
publishers, for the most part, they just don't have the manpower behind them to market every book. So they're going
Right.
to market the proven best
Mhm.
sellers or celebrity books. And that's when you go into
Yeah.
a Barnes and Noble or something, that's all
Right.
you see
Yeah.
because that's what they're marketing. So it's kind of like, well, if I don't get that from it, it's
Yeah.
the publishing itself, and that I can learn. So
Right.
I thought, well, I'll do one and see how it goes. And if I'm lost or I can't figure it out,
Right.
I'll bag this and just try to publish. But I actually enjoy all of that.
That's good. That's good. I know when we talked to you at our book club, your editor or one of your editors was there. How did you already know her? Or how did
Yeah,
you find her?
yeah,
Oh, you did. Oh, okay.
yeah. And she and her sister had both. Uh, we've always they'd say, hey, I read this book, I really liked it, and everything, and then they started looking at it and saying, hey, if you want us to read it and give us our we're giving you our feedback whether you want it or not, but
Right.
if you'd like it earlier, I'm like,
Right.
no, I'd appreciate that. And I said, and especially because not living in Texas for so long, but the
Right.
book's taking place in Texas, I really needed someone to keep me Texas true.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they're really good at doing.
Yeah.
They'll catch little, I'll slip in a you guys every once in a while.
Yeah, we don't say that, don't we?
Like, no.
No. Anybody that says that, it stands out.
Yep, yep.
They're not from here for sure. So, what has been your favorite book, do you think, of yours that you've written? Or maybe one that you're the most proud of?
That's really tough. It's like, they're all
Did
my
you? Right, right.
but and different ones for different reasons,
Yeah,
I think like Red Dirt Blues I really am proud of because it was more, it's more of my personality in that. It's got
yeah.
more humor in it, and it's got
Mhm.
family tales in it and
Mhm.
everything, and trying to find a way to weave in a complicated story with Russian mob and assassins and all kinds of strange things.
Yeah,
But the Sam Lawson ones, actually, all of them, they progressive. The first one, just because I did it,
yeah.
I think that. So I'm always very proud of that.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
the last one, I think I did it a different way, and so
yeah.
I was proud of that one. I like the way that came out. And then the one that I just wrote, the psychological thriller, because
Hmm.
it's a different genre
Right.
completely. And it
Yeah.
was one of those, I'm going to throw it out there. We'll see what
Let's
people think. And
see.
people are really liking it. So
I do like psychological thrillers, but is it scary like with ghost stuff?
It's not that scary.
It's not that
As
scary.
with all of my books, my mother is the litmus
Oh,
test.
that's true. That's true. I forgot about your mom.
And she read that one, and she does
Yeah.
not like scary books. And she goes, David, I love you. I'm going to read this, but I don't want to. And she finished and she goes, I think this is my favorite book of
Oh,
yours.
really?
And she goes, it wasn't, it was, there was creepy things in it, but there was
Yeah.
enough reality in it that it never got really scary, scary.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Do you ever get writer's block?
I I don't really. Because I think because I've written, like with advertising, written as a craft for so
Right.
long that I know just to write, just to
Yeah.
do it. And if I can't, if an idea isn't coming, then I'll work around it.
Yeah.
And just writing, it takes writing to break writer's block, I feel.
Right.
And I think that that's how I can kind of get through it. So if I'm having trouble coming up with an idea for a book,
Hmm.
in fact, the new one, the thriller, that's how that happened. I was working on Murder in Spa City, and I was trying to figure out the plot, and I was kind of stumbling for a while on it. And so I started working on this other one,
Hmm.
and plotting that out. And then I'm like, oh, now I remember. And something
There
would
you
come.
go.
So then I'd go back to Spa City in that way. But
Yeah.
just
I
doing.
loved Murder in Spa City. That was a great book. And
Oh, thank you.
because I read a lot, and if I love a book, I can read it. I mean, I don't have any little kids around. My priorities have changed a lot, and so I have time to just read. So I read it in a day,
Oh,
like a
wow.
Saturday. I just spent the day. But if I like a book that much, I can do it. So it was a great story. Somebody said at book club that the beginning of the Sam Lawson mysteries, like starting with number one, that Sam Lawson was kind of a rough character, and then he has sort of mellowed out over the course of the books. Was that on purpose? Did you do
Yes.
that? It was.
Yeah. He started out really rough. I think in his very first scene in the first book, he's being kicked out of a bar where he
Oh
has started
gosh.
a fight by someone that he had arrested before. And, he's a little drunk, and he has to go to a crime scene, and everyone can smell liquor on his,
Oh wow.
and that no one likes him
Yeah.
and stuff. So, he's kind of come a long way
Yeah,
since.
he wasn't like that at all in this one. So
No. In fact, I think he's getting, a little too good. So I think I need to pull a rug out from underneath him. And
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I don't like the cliche, I guess, that will happen a lot in books. And this happened both with the character where, he's struggling, but he finds his way.
Right.
That's good for one book, but you can't have him re-struggling the beginning of the
Every
next.
time. Yeah.
So I want him to learn and struggle in different things and find
Yeah.
different things that he's dealing with. And in Murder in Spa City, and it's hinted at a little bit, but he's now faced with a little bit of celebrity. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to be his next hurdle.
Yeah.
He doesn't want it, but it's there. And
Yeah.
that's going to, have him go forward. The other thing was the relationship with Carla. I
Yes.
didn't want to, I really am like, oh, have the will they or won't they type
Right.
of thing go on and on and on and on and on, forever and ever. And I dislike that so much in books and
Right.
movies. I like it for a little while, and then I'm like,
Right.
let's either do or don't.
Right. Make a decision here.
Yeah, so I didn't want to, because you start repeating yourself in that way.
Right.
And that that whole relationship from book one to where it is now was
Hmm.
dictated purely by readers.
Oh
And
wow.
feedback I was getting from people, and
Huh.
kind of I'm like, okay, let's see where it
Yeah.
goes. Yeah.
Well, I loved it. I love this one. So I'm excited to read three, but I'd like to get back to one. Hopefully they'll get those in and I can read them all sort of in order. What is your writing environment have to be like? Like, do you have to have all quiet, or do you have like music on? Can you go to a coffee shop?
It depends on the stage I'm at in it.
Mm,
I'm typically write. I need quiet to
hmm.
write. And sometimes that's difficult. I'm living in an apartment, and my adult daughter's living here. She's
Hmm.
getting her master's,
Oh
so
yeah.
she's here too. So it's
It's
hard
not
to
always
get away
quiet.
from
Yeah.
each other. Yeah.
Right.
Luckily, she's a vampire. She comes out at night. So my mornings are normally my writing time. I get up in
Right.
the morning and I'll write early. I'll get up, really early
Yeah.
and write. And when I'm plotting, I can have music playing. I get up and walk around. I'll go for a drive, and I use software to kind of help me actually
Oh,
do
okay.
it. Coming up with the ideas is kind of,
Sure.
just on the fly with a notepad. And then when I get in, and then I outline
Yeah.
I do like a very broad plot thing, and then I outline and poke holes in that for the plot,
Yeah.
so that I can make, everyone's alibi a little more airtight and
Yes.
try to close up any holes. And then I'll start writing. And when I write, that's when I need silence. Like
Right.
any type of music is distracting to me. I start singing along with it. So, and that takes longer because of that, because I need to find
Yes.
quiet periods.
Yeah. So if you're self-publishing and you're not meeting someone else's deadline, do you still get up every day and write, like working on your next book? You do.
I do. I give myself a deadline, and
Oh, that's good.
I try to stay really disciplined
Yeah.
about hitting it. And if things happen, if life happens, I
Right.
give myself a little leeway,
Right.
because that's the beauty of self-publishing.
Yes, exactly.
But I try to do it because otherwise I'll never, finish. But I try to
Yeah.
write every day and stay in that habit, because I know once I get out of it, it's hard to get
Right.
back in it again. In fact,
Right.
right now, I'm in that lull between books, and I give myself about a month, and I use that
Yeah.
month either to promote or just do nothing.
Right.
But I've got my schedule start, next book starts here,
Well,
and
that's good.
start
So
again.
what is your next one? Is it going to be another Sam Lawson or it is? Yay.
Sam Lawson, he's coming back to Texas.
He's coming back to Texas.
I've got just fragments of ideas.
Yeah.
So I don't even have a real story yet, but I'll put something together. I'll
Oh,
figure
I'm
something.
sure it will be great. I loved what you talked about when you at the book club, you talked about how you know the ending and you give every single character a reason to have done whatever, committed murder or whatever. And I after reading it, I understand that because I thought everybody did it. I really did. I thought, well, it could have been her, it could have been him. I mean, everybody had a reason. So that's very interesting that you do that. Have you done that with all of them? Like all of the
No,
books?
this last book is the first time I've done that, to have all of the main suspects, and do that.
Yeah.
And I did that. Typically, I'll have the plot, and I'll have the victim and the murderer in advance, and then I find anyone else I put in it after that. I give them a
Mhm.
reason.
Yeah.
But with Murder in Spa City, I came up with all of the characters, and then gave each of them a motive for the
Yeah.
kill, and then picked which one of them would be the killer.
Yeah.
So it was a little different, but I enjoyed. It was more fun for me, you know,
Yeah.
writing it too, and it helped me guide all of the characters, especially with that one where there were many more. Typically, I only
Right.
3 or 4.
Oh, yeah, there was a bunch in this one. What is your favorite thing about what you're doing? Your favorite thing about writing, your favorite thing about publishing your books? What do you
Um,
love?
I love, like what you just said. I love hearing that people enjoy it, and
Mhm.
my whole reason for doing it, and I started writing it. It was before COVID. It was before the whole pandemic and everything like that. But it was still at that time, just as it is now, there's just all kinds of, life's hard for everyone. And
Right.
people are struggling with 1,000 things, and there's just a lot of hate in the world
Yeah.
and a lot of everything. And so I just wanted to have an escape, for people, where they could take whatever time and then just enjoy it. That's why I keep them kind of light. Like, they're not
Yeah.
really dark, because I'm like, no, I want them
Yeah.
to be entertaining, and I don't want to be a cozy mystery where it's, super light. But I
Right.
want people to read with a smile, and
Yes.
and that when, and so if I can give anyone a little respite like that, that's what I
Hmm.
enjoy most.
What advice would you give somebody that wants to write, that aspires to do what you're doing? What's the best piece of advice you could get them to start?
The Well, the best is the obvious, which is do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Right. Too many people I talk to talk about they want to write.
Mhm.
And I have a story and I want to write, and I'm like, then write it.
Right.
Like, don't think about how you're going to market it or how you're going to publish it. You can't do
Right.
any of that till you have it written anyway.
Yeah.
And write with abandon and know that the first draft of whatever you write is going to be garbage. And it's like, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But you got to get that out. And it's almost
Yeah.
like you got to clear the pipes. And then you can, but you have something to work with. Uh,
Yeah.
and writing is 99% editing.
Yes.
And but it's just doing it. Too many people just are afraid. And I get it. It's a big thing to think
Yeah.
of writing. And some people I like outlines. I like to work that way, and other people don't.
Yeah.
Just,
Whatever works.
whatever works. Yeah.
Yep.
And I tell you, I kind of knew what to expect. I watched some of your podcasts.
Oh, okay.
They're really good. You
Well,
do such a great
thanks.
job.
Thank
And
you.
your
Thank you.
edit, even the way you've edited, and you cut back and forth and the whole thing, it's yeah, it was really good.
Well, thank you very much.
And I watched the one, and I think it was with the other author you were talking about. It was
Harry Whitaker.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you knew anything about his mom's books, but she had written this series that I had been reading over the course of, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And so I was very invested in these stories. And the last book was supposed to be like answer all the questions, wrap everything up, and it didn't. And it had more questions. And so I was like, man. So I read the 7th book, and literally she passed away like 3 days after I read it. The author did. And I thought, I don't want to be disrespectful, but are we ever going to know what happened to all this stuff? So then I started reading online, and I saw that her son, before she died, because she had been sick, worked with her, and he wrote the last book.
Yeah.
It was excellent. The book, I mean, it answered all the questions beautifully. It was wonderful. And I thought it'd be fun to talk to him. I mean, I am not afraid to ask anybody. All they can say is no. And he said, yes, how about tomorrow? And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh.
But it was great. I was honored that he would talk to me, and
Yeah.
because I
It was
do
a great
read a
read.
lot, and I only reach out to people whose books I like. I'm not going to talk to somebody whose book I don't like. That was fun to talk to him. And so I thought, I really want to do this more. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Well, it's great.
Oh,
And yeah, and I
thank
listened
you.
to some of the other ones too. Just I learned a lot. In
Thank
fact,
you.
I've
Thank you.
tagged several others. I'm now subscribed on
Oh,
podcasts. So
good, good, good. Well, thank you. Really. Thank you for talking to me. I do
thank
appreciate
you
it.
for the
And I
opportunity.
love your books. I'm excited to get all of them and read all of them. I'm gonna test the waters on the scary one. Let some
Okay.
people read it first.
Email me your address and I'll send some
Okay.
to you.
Oh my goodness, you don't have to do that.
No,
I mean, I won't be mad, but
yeah, no, I have a
thank you.
suitcase full of books.
Oh my goodness, that would be
I
awesome.
use them for book festivals, and it's like
Yeah.
a traveling salesman. I walk in with my
Hey,
suitcase.
that's what you got to do. That's what you got
So
to do.
yeah, so I can pull some out of there. And
That would be awesome. I would love that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
You too. Bye
Okay,
bye.
bye-bye.